Hey everyone, on today's Bike Check, we are talking with Sarah, who built this beautiful Deviate Highlander. Stay tuned and hear about why she picked the bike, what keeps her on the bike, and how she chose these components.
Okay.
Hey Sarah, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you for coming on the podcast. You are our official first podcast ever. And I wanted to do a bike check because you recently built this absolutely, you built a lot of really good bikes. Honestly, when I first was looking for bikes, I found your Instagram of your Rascal and I was like, that is what I'm doing. I'm doing that bike. And I think I remember like stalking your Instagram and messaging you like, hey, what tires did you put on this thing? What components do you have on
Yeah, I think I remember that.
So you now have a Deviate high pivot bike, right?
hmm
Tell us a little bit about that. What kind of bike is it? Like, what do you like about it?
So, as you know, I kind of actually took a break from mountain biking for a while,
Yep.
like 6 months. I just really needed to hit reset after a lot of years of basically just trying. Not that I don't even touch the levels of some of these like women of free ride, but I just was at a point after some like head injuries where I needed to reestablish my relationship with mountain biking.
Darn.
I needed to step back and see like what parts of it I actually missed.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, 6 months without a bike, and I was trying to figure out what kind of bike I wanted because I've always gravitated towards gravity riding. So big enduro bikes, downhill bikes. The
So you
Rascal.
you've always ridden like big enduro bikes? That was always your go-to, like high travel bikes? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never really been like cross country. When I ride, it's because I think it's probably because the environment I grew up in as a kid was like in a not good way, like adrenaline type environment. So I just kind of learned to really crave, like I need adrenaline to function. But now I
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to, yeah. So being an adrenaline junkie, I've always gravitated towards the stuff that makes me kind of pucker a little bit rather than just miles.
Yeah. So you went for this bike because it's a high travel bike? Like I think it's
Um,
150 in the front, isn't it?
it's so the Highlander, they have a 140 and a 150, which is reference to the rear travel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this one's the 150. Um, I had read that they had changed some of the rear end kinematics for the 150 to be friendly with a coil shock, and I'm very partial to a coil shock.
I mean, you love that Push one. Didn't you work for Push for a long time, for a little while?
I did, yeah. And the 11.6, which is Push's shock, is very good. But
Yeah.
the gap is definitely closing in terms of I would say RockShox isn't really quite up there personally for their coil offerings, but the Fox DHX2 I have on this bike is pretty damn good.
Would you say it's one of the best shocks you've ridden? How does it compare to Push, I guess?
The push shock it's just a completely different, it's a totally different customer. The push shock is for someone who wants the benefits of coil, like small bump sensitivity, some plushness, added plushness, less of that really saggy feeling you can get that mid stroke with an air shock if you're trying to make it plush.
Yep.
And the push shock is for someone, their business model basically is custom tuning every single shock for specific bikes.
Okay.
It's basically your customer who's like, I don't know anything about suspension. I don't want to turn any knobs. I just want something out of the box that I can put on my bike. And it's going to be like, I might have to turn something a turn or two, but like
Mm-hmm.
it should be like pretty dialed out of the box. Like that's that customer who
Okay.
wants that experience. But I like tinkering. I know enough about suspension to kind of adjust stuff, tune stuff on my own. So the DHX2 takes a little bit more setup from the rider. It's
Yep.
not going to come out of the box, tuned for anything. So, but I think it's excellent, especially on this frame. I've been very pleased. But yeah, basically I wanted to find a bike that was maybe not quite just a straight up gravity bike, but something that was a good all arounder.
Yeah.
Because I really need to step back from that like pure, just constant adrenaline rush and actually get into like, oh, I can actually like look around and actually
Enjoy your surroundings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far this bike, even though it's 150 out back, it's I mean the Rascal is an outstanding bike. I think it descends better than any other 130 bike out there. But to be honest, I think that this bike, even though it has more travel, it outclimbs the Rascal.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lyric on there. Is that you have 160 in the front fork?
It's 150
What's
right now because I had a
Okay.
different frame on order and that ended up falling through. They say this frame can be 150 or 160 up front. So unfortunately, there
Okay.
aren't any 160 air shafts available for the new Lyric yet. Once there are, I will be bumping it up to 160. But so yeah, I'm riding at 150 right now. But it's still pretty damn good.
The Rascal is amazing. I absolutely love that bike. I'm really curious about their 29er, the Rail 29er. I'm hoping to demo that in Sedona in a couple months.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My fear is climbing on it. You know, I always feel if you're going to have like a 160 in the front, it's going to be a pain to climb in. And where I live, there's a ton of cross country. So like,
There's so much that goes on with geometry that just travel alone shouldn't really sway you, especially up front.
yeah.
I can't remember, other than my Rascal, I haven't ridden a bike with less than 160 up front in several years. And it's more a geometry and like rear end kinematics that really determine how well a bike climbs. It's not so much just fork travel.
Right.
I mean, I've ridden
Yeah,
bikes
you're right.
that were 160 or 170 and were awful to climb on. I've also ridden bikes with 150 forks that I was like, wow, this thing is not as fast as I thought it would be.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there's so much more that goes into it than just like how long your fork is.
So why did you pick this specific bike? Was it because you wanted to try one of their bikes, or, you know, as opposed to like, I'm just gonna say a random bike, like as opposed to like a Yeti SB 160 or SB 130, whatever they have right now. 150, I'm sorry. What made the Deviate? Because you've had a Forbidden before, I know that was high pivot too. So was it the high pivot aspect of it, or like what drew you to this frame?
Being in Colorado, everybody rides a freaking Yeti.
It's like a cliche almost.
Yeah, and having been a mechanic for so long, like there's so many bikes that I've had in my stand where I can see all of the problems that each manufacturer has, especially with carbon fiber frames. I personally, knowing me, and I tend to land like a sack of potatoes off of features. Like cracking a rear triangle is just not something I want to do.
Yeah.
And the Yetis have gotten better since they changed carbon fiber frame manufacturers. But I don't know. Yeah. So I picked this one mostly because, it's kind of weird since COVID started with availability. Just trying to get stuff. I've really had to reach outside the box. Parts, frames, building wheels, sourcing stuff from places that I don't normally. I'd kind of gone through, I'd had a different frame on order, and it kept getting pushed back. And I was so antsy to come back to mountain biking, but it was like late enough in the summer that I was kind of like, okay, I feel like I'm just watching the summer blow by. I'm ready to ride. So Deviate, I originally found when I was working at Push, and I had some Push customers reach out. Often we would figure out what bikes to do tunes for based on just demand. So if we have a lot of people calling about a certain bike, it's like, okay, I guess we got to get one of those in. And there had been some people calling about them, not a ton, not enough for us to develop a custom shock for it. So I kind of wrote Deviate off when I worked there because it was like, okay, well, if we're never going to do a shock for it, then I guess I shouldn't bother. But now that I don't work there anymore and I can kind of just run whatever I want. I don't know. It came to me one day while I was in class and just had some downtime. And I was like, oh yeah, that company. I wonder what they have going on. And so I started doing some more, review research, and they had frames in stock.
Surprisingly.
Yeah. So, and I love that you can buy a frame from them without a shock. Because
that's hard to find. I wanted to do that with Rebel for the 29er, and they're like, no, it comes with the shock. I'm like, well, I don't need the shock, but
yeah. And the DHX2 that I had, it happened to be the exact same size, 210 by 55. I had to get a different spring rate, but I had already had that shock, and it would have fit. It would have been a direct swap right onto this frame. So I was like, hell yeah. And yeah, so a lot of that, all those factors add up. It's available. Yeah. I can get it without a shock because I already have one. They have it in a color that works with the wheels that I've already built that have lime green hubs. Like, you can't just get any color frame to put with lime.
Yeah.
So
I mean, what was the other color of the other frame you were looking at that kept getting pushed back?
It was a Canfield Tilt, which was an aluminum frame, but it was like a raw aluminum, so just shiny silver, which works with anything.
Yeah, just like the Rascal.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna see if I could pull up a picture of it here, and mind you, like, I have never done this before. So I don't know if this is gonna work. It's a learning opportunity. Yeah, no, I don't. No. We'll figure it out. I'll post some really sick photos of your bike so that people could see it. The other question I had for you was, what do you love about this bike that makes you just grab it and pick it up and want to ride every day? Like, what's the thing that draws you to it? Is it the fact that it climbs really well in comparison, right, with geometry and all that? Or is it that you can go really fast on it? Or is it the shock? Is it the rear shock? Like, what makes you look at it and be like, I want to ride my bike today because this bike is killer?
I mean, one, it looks really cool.
Yeah, it does look really cool.
The high pivot, like, people think it's a fad. It's definitely, there's some chewy. Sorry, my bird is.
I can barely hear him.
Okay. Yeah, people think it's a fad, but it functionally actually does a lot of stuff. And if you want me to go into that, I can. I love how the high pivot feels. I did not like my Forbidden bike, but I think that was because of other factors. It wasn't because it was a high pivot. In fact, I can't even, when I ride this one, I can't even tell that there is that extra idler pulley on it.
Really?
There's no drag. It's dead silent. You can really feel how the rear end, just the way that it moves is different than a traditional frame.
Yeah.
So when you're really plowing through some kind of bumpy stuff, most bikes kind of lose momentum. But because the wheel kind of goes back and up, it just gets out of the way. So it just floats over that stuff, and you don't really lose any speed going over rocks, which is a really crazy feeling. Yeah.
Is that on most high pivots? You said, although for your Forbidden it wasn't, right? You didn't have the same feel as you did with this one.
I did. There just were other things about that bike that it just was not a good match for me. But
fair enough.
Yeah. No, the traits that are specific to the high pivot technology, I think, are excellent. And Deviate really knocked it out of the park with this one. But yeah, I mean, so there's something about it. There are some bikes when you get on them and you start pedaling them, especially when you're going where it's kind of flat, maybe a little bit uphill, where some of them, it's almost like the bike is saying, like, come on, yeah, let's go. And there's just like an energy to it that Like it accelerates really fast. I don't feel like I'm pedaling some pig around. I don't feel like I'm the only one trying to make it go. Like it responds. It's quick. Like I said, it climbs really well. It's fast.
Man, I want to try it. I need to ride this bike now. You
You're
have a meet
welcome to.
or well, when I come to Colorado, we'll trade. You can ride my small Rascal, which you
There you
probably
go.
won't like.
It'll be
What's
fun.
the frame size in this one? A small or a medium or?
It's a medium, but and I'm usually pretty solidly a medium, and I feel like the reach on this is it's shorter than I'm used to.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What about the wheelbase on there? Do you feel pretty stable on it?
It is still. It's a really bizarre bike because, like I said, it's really fast. Which normally you feel that kind of acceleration with a shorter wheelbase bike.
Yeah.
This one's still fairly long. I don't remember exactly how long it is. I'd have to look.
I can find all those specs and run it by you when I post it because I think I want to do a little post on the website for it too.
Yeah, it's. I've only noticed its wheelbase on like a couple of sharp switchback turns.
Okay.
But to be honest, at this point, I can't fault the bike for anything because I've been off the bike for 6 months and I think I've done 4 rides. So it's probably me, not the bike.
No, you never know. No, I think it's literally bikes are like riding a bike. It's going to take you 1 or 2 rides to get used to it, to get back into it. I mean, I haven't ridden in a little while. Last time I rode was at Sky Park. I finally went to Sky Park. Absolutely loved it.
It's such a weird place.
It really is. The Santa Claus was walking around in like July.
It's so weird.
So confused. And then it started to rain. But anyway, I love the Rascal in that terrain. It was super fun. Biking was like your escape, right? Like a lot of people, I hear people talking about all the time, like mountain bike just gives you that zen almost where you can disappear and go wherever you want.
Yeah, and it's been really funny kind of seeing how mountain biking has evolved into this like really bougie thing because I grew up in Los Angeles and mountain biking was just like a bunch of punks in like cut off jeans and baggy tank tops and people just shredding around on these like shitty bikes. And yeah, it would be like someone today picking up like a Walmart bike and hucking it off of like big drops at Whistler. Like we were just doing dumb stuff, you know. And I'm guilty of it too. Now that I'm like old enough that I've gotten hurt enough, I'm like, I think my fork is like 5 psi under where I normally ride it. I couldn't possibly hit that drop.
Oh my god. That hits close to home. My wife makes fun of me for doing that stuff all the time. She's like, I'm like, do you need me to tune your bike? Do you need me to add some shock in there? She weighs like 110 pounds. I'm like, do you need me to add anything else? She's like, no, my bike is good. Weird. I'm like, no. But I still like check, you know, and I'm the one that's always like, okay, I'm just going to do like 5 PSI more on my rear shock.
That'll make the difference.
It'll make the entire difference.
The whole, yeah. So yeah, it's kind of funny how we change, but yeah, when I was a kid, it was just like, especially in LA, it was kind of a weird combination of like when I could find people to go up into the hills with to actually put some wheels on dirt. Like, yeah, we rode a lot of stupid stuff that even now I would be like, no, thank you.
We're invincible as children.
Yeah, man, I wish. It was weird. After my mom passed away several years ago, now I have this like weird like relationship with mortality. But like before that, I was just like, fuck it. And I had no fear. I have fear now. But I think it keeps me safe most of the time.
Fear is a good thing, I think.
Yeah. Now I just take very calculated risks. Too calculated sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. I just grew up. That was just my bikes, you know, I smashed the crap out of them. None of them ran very well. And that's kind of how I started to get into mechanic stuff too, is because my parents were like, oh my God, we were just at the bike shop on Monday. Like, you can't already need to go back to the bike shop. But figure it out. Fix it yourself. I'm like, but I don't know how. We'll figure it out. I'm like, okay. So I just
That's awesome though.
yeah, so that's kind of how I got into both mountain biking and mechanic stuff. But
You know, I'm scared to do stuff on my bike. I want to learn how to do stuff on my bike because I think it's important, and I'm
Mhm.
mechanically inclined, but every time I go to do something, I think I'm going to break it. And I've
Okay.
spent money on it and I don't want to break it. So like even just changing
Totally.
my brake pads, I like Googled it. I think I hit you up at one point and I was like, does this look right? And then I did it. I didn't break it. And then I just kept thinking, well, if it breaks, it breaks. Like it's fixable. You can take it to the bike shop and they'll fix it, you know?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
now I'm becoming a little bit more gutsy in doing things to my bike.
it's scary because, well, everything's so expensive now too. So,
And finding parts now, right? Because of
mhm.
COVID, it's rough finding stuff. I
Mhm.
mean, you couldn't find SRAM chains for
Oh
months.
yeah, yeah,
I was lucky I had a spare because if I broke mine, I wouldn't be able to ride. It would be a pain.
yeah. It was really touchy there for a while.
So I saw that you recently put wireless shifter. Did you go the GX AXX or did you do the XO1 wireless that you put on there?
Um,
Derailleur.
as someone who just talked shit on bougie mountain biking, I did get the XO.
That's awesome.
Because in my head, I'm like, this thing's already like the axis system is heavier than a cable system.
Okay.
Not a lot, but enough. And this bike is already heavy enough that I'm kind of, I mean, it doesn't ride heavy. It rides way lighter than it is. But it's at the point where like, I don't want to make it heavier than it is. So, if I can save some grams by going XO over GX, then I'll do that.
Why not? I would do the same thing if I could afford it.
Um,
I really want a wireless one, but I just think I'm one of those people that's going to forget to charge it,
oh,
and then I'm kind of screwed.
Oh, my phone is only charged like I had to set like 3 reminders about our thing today because most of the time I don't even like I don't charge my phone at night. I can't remember to I lose power on rides all the time, and I'll be somewhere where I'm like, oh, it'd be really nice to have my Trailforks app. So I totally get it. Which is exactly why I bought a second battery and a second charger. I have a charger that lives at home and I have a charger that lives in my truck. And
That's
I have 2 batteries.
awesome.
I will keep one battery in my hip pack at all times.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do that at some point. I just do so many upgrades to my bike that I got to take one thing at a time. The only other thing I'd
Yeah.
upgrade would be the wireless derailleur, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe if I like the rail, I might
Yeah.
look at that frame. I don't know.
One of my
I
friends
just,
just built a rail. She loves it. The rail too.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we could talk to her too, bring her on and do her bike check.
Oh, she would love that.
So do you mind going through just in a few minutes and just right now, and then we could probably wrap it up because I appreciate it's like 7:30 over there and it's late for you, and I get it. If you could just take me a little bit on the components that you have on this bike, like the shocks, the wheels. We talked about you've got a XO1 derailleur on there, the wireless. What else do you have on this bike?
I'm a big Industry 9 fan for hubs. I've got the Industry 9 835 stem on there as well. But yeah, those i9 hubs, you can get them in any color you want. And the engagement is so good. I used to mostly ride Chris King hubs for the engagement because at the time King hubs had the best engagement, but King makes a very good product, but the engagement is honestly kind of lagging compared to the standards of everybody else. Not everybody else.
Really?
Compared to i9. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to find, you got the pink bike of the day, right? A couple weeks ago, photo of the day, I think it was.
It was on Vital MTB.
Oh, I don't know why I thought it was pink bike.
Sometimes Pink Bike does a Pink Bike reader rides thing, but I did not.
I get them confused. I don't know. It's all
know.
information overload for me sometimes. I get like really bad ADHD with this stuff.
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
It's too much.
Okay.
But I wanted to know if on there, if it would have all those specs too, because then I could use those specs and put them up on the site.
Yeah. Yeah, those should be on there.
I'm trying to, I think I found it right now. Here it is. It's such a killer bike. Did you wrap it with like a protective wrap or anything?
It's funny you mentioned that. I did not, because normally I don't. Especially since I was in the industry for so long, I felt like I, flipped frames and components quickly enough that I didn't really damage anything badly. And of course, this thing, I must have laid it down in the like on the side of a trail, and I didn't see a rock because I've already like kind of scraped the left side of it a little bit.
Oh no.
I know, very heartbreaking, but I guess we got it out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, that first scratch is always the important one.
Yeah, well,
and then you start to not care.
I made it count, so.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and find some matte gray nail polish and then put some tape over it.
I have some extra stuff. I'm happy to send it to you.
Oh, nice.
You've been so good to me. I have some extra like wrap stuff I can just send to you, and you can probably fit it on there. It's matte too, because I got the matte part from Groundkeeper. They gave me like they made a kit for me, like it was half matte, half shiny, just like the bike.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I did a really gnarly scratch on the chainstay last month when I was in Sedona. July, I rode with Molly and I fell into a cactus.
Oh,
and
ow.
That's the second time I've done that since I've been to Sedona, like in the last year and a half. I'm getting a cactus tattoo to commemorate it.
You should.
I totally am.
Oh, that hurts so bad. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's all good. My wife had fun trying to help me, making fun of me pulling them out of my leg and my
Were
butt.
they like the really fine little tiny needles?
So this time around, it was like those green, the thin, like big green cactus that have the prickly pear at the end. I don't know the name of them. And so they have the big suckers and then the teeny tinies around it. But the one that I fell in 2 years ago was a cholla cactus. Have you seen those?
Oh yeah.
I was not Smiles Times when I did that.
Hot tip: if you fall into a cactus that has those really fine ones that you can't see and you're just losing your mind because your clothes are brushing up against them, go to a waxing studio.
Really?
Yeah, and just be like, this is where they are, and they'll be like, okay, and then you'll lose some hair in the process as well, but but it will get all of them out.
Yeah, someone was telling me, I think it was Mark from the segment, to get Elmer's glue. Oh, and like just let it dry and then peel them all off. That was a good tip too.
Yeah.
So I scratched the crap out of my bike, even with the wrap on it, like little chunky bit. Wow. I was so bummed, but whatever. I'm gonna keep that bike.
Yeah, yours is looking really good.
Yeah, dude. Ever since I went Kashima, when I bought that rear shock from you, like it's been go time. I just love that thing. And the fork I have. Yeah, and the fork is like butter. The Fox 36 for me, it's night and day from what I used to have.
Yeah.
Night and day. Thank you. I appreciate you talking to me about your bike. We didn't talk your dropper post. What kind of dropper do you have on there? Let's talk about that real quick.
So that was another thing that I really liked about this frame. I'm like literally a hair under 5'7", but I'm all leg and no torso. And it's a medium frame. It used to be a big deal when I could get a 150 dropper in a frame. Droppers have come a really long way. The last few frames I've been on, I've been able to get like a 170 post in them, which to me was like, whoa. On this bike, just, you look at the specs for different length droppers, and then you look at the specs for insertion depth and stuff for the frame, and I did a bunch of calculations, and I hate math. And I felt like an insane person. I was like, there's no way that I can get this much drop. So their droppers have basically the shortest insertion length. Their dropper. Chewy?
He
And
just wants to be a part of our awesome conversation.
So I bought a 210 millimeter 1-up dropper post, and their posts are cool too because you can adjust them within 20 millimeters.
Okay.
210 was a little tall. I couldn't quite get it once the cable was on there. I couldn't quite get it down low enough, so I dropped it to 190. So I'm writing a 190 post.
What? No, really?
Yeah, which is bonkers.
That's insane.
Yeah, it feels like a dirt jumper. My seat is so far away. It's like totally out of the way.
Yeah, we need to see a photo of that with the seat down too. Because I see it, the one you posted, it's all the way up. That's insane. 190 mil of travel on that thing.
I was a little bit concerned that like under a bottom out situation or like big landing that maybe the wheel would buzz my saddle. Is a very terrifying thing when that happens and your rear wheel stops all of a sudden. But so far, I mean, I haven't hit anything that I would consider big, but I've definitely sent it off a few things so far, and I haven't buzzed my seat. So I was smart. If I was smart, I would have taken the spring off of my shock and like pushed down on the bike and like cycled the damper to see like under full travel if it hits. But I was so like, I need to build this thing that I should have done that, but I did not. So
maybe that's your next project. Maybe now that it's in your head, you might want to take it apart and then do that. Just to see.
I already took apart an airplane engine today. I'm not taking anything apart anytime soon.
Oh my goodness. You enjoying that program, doing airplane engines right now? How's that going?
It's hard. But it's really cool.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, you're so mechanically inclined. I feel like you found something that you're passionate about, you know? The last question I have for you is, what's your next project? Do you have a next project, a next bike project?
Anyone who knows me would say that I've got to be scheming something, but I'm not. The only thing that I'm scheming is so the last 3 bikes I've been on, I've had a Zeb up front.
Okay.
The new technology in the new RockShox forks with the buttercups is very good. My only complaint with the Zeb was that it really lacked on the small bump sensitivity, so it felt kind of harsh and you'd kind of get fatigued after a while. I felt like that fork was excellent in very specific situations, but most of the time when you're just riding, average trail, it kind of beat you up a little bit. And I hear that the new one doesn't do that. And I really like this lyric. And I don't know if it's because I'm running at 150 when I ideally should be running at 160. I'm trying to do the less expensive thing and just wait a couple months until I can get a 160 air shaft and put it in there and then ride the lyric. But part of me is like, I kind of miss the beefiness of the Zeb. It holds a straight line really well. And in Colorado, we have a lot of really rocky terrain where you kind of just have to like hold on and pray a little bit. And
that's how I feel in Sedona.
yeah, and some stuff. I just, not that I'm trying. The bike is not a monster truck bike where you just go in a straight line. It's actually quite playful and turns really quickly. Just part of me is kind of missing that Zeb. So part of me is like, do I find some stuff to sell and get a 160 Zeb? Because then I don't have to wait for an air spring.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. So
and then you have another shock. And then if I build a rail and I need another fork, then maybe I'll be like, hey, Sarah, do you still have that lyric that you took off of your Deviate? And, you know.
Oh, my God. People hit me up for parts all the time because some of them have been in my garage and they're like, oh, my God, it's like literally a bike shop. There's just stuff everywhere.
That's awesome.
people used to give me shit for before COVID, and then COVID hit, and now everyone's like, no, I can't find a bottom bracket. No, I can't find this. I'm like, well, I got some.
You should start your own e-commerce shop and then, turn around those parts. I mean,
I don't know. I do some freelance work out of my garage. But yeah.
That's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I love learning more about your bike and you, because we've known each other for a little while, but I don't think we haven't met yet personally, just via the phone, which is pretty cool. I hope I can make it to Colorado this fall, but I've got like a big Sedona trip planned in November.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully that'll be pretty cool. I can't wait. And no cactuses this time.
No,
Have you fallen on a cactus?
I have. It was horrible.
Yes. You understand the feeling.
I don't recommend it. No. Can't recommend that. Come out to Colorado if you can. It's a bummer. We'll kind of be ships in the night in Sedona in November.
I know. You're going mid-November, you said?
Pretty much the week of Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. I'll probably be there from like the 27th through the 9th. 27th of October through the 9th.
Okay. I might be in LA around Christmas time though. So if I'm in SoCal, I'll hit you up.
Yeah, let's go to Sky Park when it's freezing cold. I think it'll be so much fun.
Oh my gosh.
No one will be there.
That place is so weird. It's so weird, but so fun.
Well, you have an amazing night, and thank you again.
If you all have any questions for Sarah, hit her up on her Instagram. And if you want to stick around for the next bike check, that's going to be going live next week.